My name's Newman. This is my life with plants. We're going to be repotting a Dendrobium loddigesii. So we have the sphagnum moss here, all ready to go. This will be done like a kokedama, like a moss ball, which allows lots of aeration. So here's loddigesii. Now I think this mossy mix in here has gone a bit sour because I was when I was fertilizing, I think I did it a little bit excessively, which causes root burn and all sorts of problems that we don't want. Yep, so this is native to Western Asia. You probably find it in India and Nepal and those kind of countries, quite high altitude. So it doesn't really like a lot of heat whatsoever. We've got a piece here and that's pretty much dead. Yeah, I tried layering it and kind of didn't like that. So when it produces all these keikis off the growth here, you kind of want to just let it do what it wants to do naturally. Alright, let's have a look at this root system. So once again, this is a high altitude growing plant. During the winter time, it's the sunniest or the brightest exposure. It has the brightest exposure to sunlight if it happens to be in a semi-deciduous forest. And it would receive a little bit more light during the winter months, and during the summer when all the leaves grow, all the trees grow all their new leaves and they're ready for the growing season, this would have a little bit more shade. But it grows best in temperatures around 15 to 25 degrees. I think once it gets over 30 degrees, it gets a little stressed, and definitely 40 degrees could kill it, or will kill it. It was putting out some nice growth during the summer months. Once again, once it started to get too hot, it showed its stress. And with dendrobiums, they tend to get mushy stems. When you touch them, they kind of feel mushy. Well, that's a sign that the overall stress of the plant is getting too much, and it's time to bring it into a cooler position. And if you can't maintain that, then you can always bring your plant indoors. You have a room that's got a bright window, out of direct light of sunlight, of course, during the summer, but quite close to a window with plenty of air circulation. And maybe that room is air conditioned, but don't have it in the direction of the air conditioner. Have it right away from it on another window, and those cold temperatures will actually help it through the summer. But in this case, I don't do that. I just try to move my plant around to a shadier position, and usually it's up higher. I bring it up higher on my balcony. Okay, so I can tell here by the root system that it really didn't spread it out. It's kind of all stayed together, which means that it's having a problem with the growing medium, which could be because I wanted to fertilize it and I didn't know how. You want to have the bare minimum of fertilizer, like every third to fourth time you water, you put in less than a quarter of the recommended amount of fertilizer. You just don't want to, you don't want salts building up in the growing medium. It actually makes the moss go salty and acidic, which is what you don't want. So one thing I've been doing is adding, this is dechlorinizer that you use for fish tanks. Now adding a couple of drops of that to tap water gets rid of the chlorine, and it helps to make the water neutral, because I really like slightly acidic to neutral water. I don't like the chemicals in there. But you got to bear in mind that all plants need fertilizer, and all plants need a little calcium and magnesium, so that comes with the fertilizing. But don't think that the fertilizer is everything. You know, when it comes to nutrients, they get a lot from sunlight and water and just the very basics. And the way to tell that is if your plant's growing lush, it's got a good root system, and you're doing it right. Yeah, if I look in here, it kind of looks salty. That's no good. Okay, here we go. Just going to use this pot. It's got lots of drainage in there. And the method is to wrap it. So let me get some of this. Give it a squeeze. So first I'm just going to make a ball for the middle. And you get your roots and you kind of put them so that some roots are spread this way, some are spread the other way. Kind of like splaying them out, like that. And then you want to get more moss. Give it a squeeze. And you want to start going around it. Around. This is how they do it in Japan. Because you don't want this compacted, you want this light, airy and fluffy. So by doing this method, you're not going to compact it into your pot. You're going to keep it open and airy, which is what the orchids like. Just keep packing it around like this, even though bits are falling down. Now I would rather have long strands. They're much easier to work with, longer strands of moss. But this moss doesn't come in long strands, it's when it's been all chopped up. If you get the New Zealand sphagnum moss, you can actually get longer strands. So you set them all out. All ready to go, and then you wrap it around like string, which is better. Okay, now you got this big fat moss ball. You see that? Nice big fat one. Now it's going to go into here. And the way to put it in is you just put it in a little sideways, like that. And then you push around the edges, like that. Okay, making sure you're not pushing the center of the plant. And you push in. It just slides in. It's kind of like putting your socks on in the morning. Now notice that I'm not pushing the center. I'm just pushing here. I pushed it in enough that I feel like it's snug in there. Alright, and I just push just a tiny bit more so that I don't have runoff too much. when I water it, the water will come in here and then soak up the moss. And then you can see that the center of the plant is kind of a little bit higher than the rim, which is what you want. And that is basically it. It is all done while maintaining nice fluffy moss. Because I haven't compacted or choked it or squeezed it, I've just slid it into the pot like that. This will have maximum aeration. This is how you use sphagnum moss. It's the best method. So when this thing gets watered, it'll bring in a lot of oxygen into the moss, keep the moss. The moss has the potential to, in places, it can rejuvenate. Although this moss is completely dead, there are spores in there, and it actually can start to rejuvenate. The sign of a healthy potting medium is when the moss is alive and green. Although a lot of growers will say that the moss is inhibiting the growth of the orchid or competing too much with the plant. Moss is a sign that your water is good. You got it in a good position with plenty of aeration. If your moss kind of smells bad, and then you get this salt. You can see the salts in there. That's no good for it. This moss was actually had a layer of healthy moss on top that was actively growing. That's what I want to maintain. Loddigesii. And I am going to put this outside in the cold. It doesn't mind it at all. Even though when it says that this is an orchid that grows in an area where it's dry in the winter, dry can have many meanings. It could mean that for them in their country it's a dry season, but it may not mean that it's not going to rain. Nothing can go without water for too long, otherwise it'll die. So during the winter months, these orchids would still get some moisture. It just doesn't rain all the time, but during the cool mornings, they probably get a little fog that comes in, or mist. And when they're growing on the trunks of the trees, that mist goes into the mosses and the lichens and all that are attached to the tree, which keeps the roots hydrated, okay? And we have to remind ourselves that that's how they grow, even though that when you check their weather forecast, it says sunny for the next 2 weeks. But in the higher altitude areas where they grow, they're going to get that fog and or mist during the early mornings. And so what it actually means is that they just have a drier season during the winter, but they're not lacking water. And on the contrary to that, they get into the summer. That's when the monsoons come. So it rains quite a lot. It means they get hydrated a lot more than they would usually, and then they actively grow. And so life goes on. Okay, so this is still a healthy plant. It just needs to do a lot more growing. And once again, I tried to do a layering with a keiki, and it didn't like it. Surprisingly, didn't like it. I mean, I tried to pin it down back into the media, and maybe also, the reason is because the medium has just gone acidic. But I'm just going to let it what it does naturally. Just let it grow and make mini keikis and turn into a nice cascading plant. I'm still glad I have this. I bought this at a nursery close to where I live, and it was from a company that specializes mainly in Japanese native plants, and they had loddigesii, which kind of was a little bit unusual for me because the GCI is a native to Japan, it's native to Western Asia, but this kind of tells me that this plant kind of grows in similar conditions to the native Japanese orchids. We get a lot of native Japanese orchids from up even where I live. They grow naturally in the forests. It's a little harder to grow them in the city because we don't have that kind of humidity. They can be kept up just because of buildings and stuff like that. They kind of reduce the amount of humidity that can come in, or we tend to live on flat lower land and not up high. Okay, so I'm not going to make the same mistake. I'm going to fertilize the bare minimum, probably once every at least 3 weeks, because I want a nice healthy growing media. Otherwise the roots are just going to do what they did here. They're going to cease to grow. Okay, so that's the things to remind yourself is my moss growing and is it green? Then you're doing the right thing. Yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and there'll be more updates of my orchids growing outside so that you guys can look in and just see how they go. Yeah, I want to show you the Dendrobiums out there that I repotted. They were pretty beaten up from summer. Anyway, until next time, we'll see you. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get more information on what's coming up. Yep, and don't forget that looking after your plants is not a chore. It's part of your self-care. So enjoy growing, and until next time, we'll see you. Bye-bye.